Now this is exciting.
Oh, I like
Hello. Yeah, I know. I saw you dancing all the way through that 30 seconds. Yeah, amazing. How are you, Lord Simon?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm really pumped up after that. Yeah, I'm really good. Yeah, genuinely.
Good.
Genuinely pumped.
I hope you've not peaked a little bit early, though.
No. I'll be steady going up. Don't worry. That's got me going.
Yeah, good. No, this is well exciting. So, for those people who don't know who I am, my name is Lee Horton. I work for a company called Get Knowledge. We enable businesses to reduce their costs while delighting their people. But we've also got another course which is about building confidence, because in the last 15 years, I think change and can be the loneliest place in the world, and also dent a lot of confidence. So I want to help people like me on the journey that I'm on be more confident. So that's why I'm here, and that's who I am. But really, if I wasn't standing up now, which I am standing up now, I would be standing up. So all please be standing for Lord Simon Jacobs. Who are you, Lord Simon?
Thank you very much, Lee, and I appreciate the standing ovation. So I'm Lord Simon Jacobs. So for anyone who doesn't know me or doesn't follow me on LinkedIn, my profile name is Lord Simon Jacobs. I think we'll get into that in a second, the Lord side of things. But I run a company called Professional Weirdos, which is all about creativity. So we do creativity training for companies, which is where we go in and run workshops and talks and help people reconnect, or at the very least, still engage with their creativity. So when you get hired by a company, sometimes it's very easy to get yourself lost in the culture of the business and kind of forget your creative endeavors. And so we try and make sure that you have that, and also bring that into the business as well, because sometimes your creativity can get lost in business. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Perfect. So 2 questions I've got for you then. Lord Simon.
Just rearranging my mic.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's all good. Lord Simon, what is all that about? And also, what is a professional weirdo?
Yeah, great question. So Lord Simon, so the lordship actually came when I was about 16. I was not knighted by the Queen, unfortunately, yet. But around the time when I was 16, all my friends were looking for UCAS stuff, all the university things. I was quite keen on a loophole, and so I was Googling ways to get a degree without going to university, and you could find them. You can get a degree from Kazakhstan University, but it was about $4,000, which I didn't have at the time. But on the internet shame spiral that I was on, I found that you could become a lord by purchasing a plot of land at an old manor, which I reckon is probably swampland now. It's like an old 1700s law. So I bought a lordship for about 20 quid, which was about 12 years ago now. I remember running down to my parents saying, I'm going to be a lord. They gave me that typical look like, oh, no, not this. What? Don't be stupid, Simon. And I've basically embraced it ever since. So you can put it on your bank accounts. You can put it on your driving license. You can put it on some official documents. I didn't put it on my driving license because of some advice from my dad, which actually was good advice. But it is on my bank statements and stuff. And I've had so much fun with it. And so I just put it on my LinkedIn because it helps me stand out. And, people get quite excited when they get contacted by a lord.
Yeah, no, it does, and I think this is our 3rd or 4th official gig together.
Engagement.
Yeah, engagement. Yes, yeah. So, and it's not all down to the lordship. I can assure you, it's down to what you bring as well. But I was thinking, so when I'm looking now, I can see you and I can see me, and I think my first thing was, if I had a beard, glasses, and hair, would we look similar? Do you think?
You know what? I don't think we're too dissimilar, actually.
There we go. I'll take that.
I'll pass you my glasses.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That if you had a pair of glasses, you could grab.
Yeah. It's that way, isn't it? No, perfect. So, conscious of the time, we have an hour to get through this and to do this and to deliver what we're going to deliver on how to be more confident and how to be more creative. 2 things that are close to our hearts and what we do on a day-to-day basis. So, we've both got a few slides that we're going to go through. But the first slide that I wanted to really chat about is let me just bring the slides up. There we go. It's really our definitions and what do they mean to us. So the first one being confidence. So the dictionary definition of confidence is the feeling or belief that one can have faith in or rely on someone, which includes yourself or something. But what does confidence mean to you, Lord Simon?
So confidence to me it's a really interesting one, because when you say the word confident to someone who isn't confident, in the stereotypical sense, they imagine someone that was kind of born with confidence. You think that confidence is an inbuilt trait almost. It's definitely not. First of all, so the people that you look at who you think are confident, a lot of the time inside, they don't feel all that confident. They put on a show to be able to put on that mask. I would generally agree with that meaning. Really, you have faith in yourself first of all, and I would just say it takes steps to get to there. It's not an immediate black or white thing. I think that's something that I really want to express in terms of confidence.
Yeah, completely agree. The bit on the definition for me is that confidence is a feeling. So confidence is internal, and I know some people that are really can confidently jump out of a plane, and I know other people that can confidently stand on stage and deliver to hundreds of people. But give them people something like looking after a newborn child, and they might not be as confident. So confidence is a feeling that people have inside them, but it's also situational and individual.
Absolutely.
So we're going to explore confidence and how to be more confident shortly. And then creativity. So the Google definition of creativity is the use of imagination or original ideas to create something. So when I put this slide together and I saw the use of imagination and I saw the feeling in confidence, for me, these two words are both inside us already. But as a professional weirdo and a creative, would you call yourself a creative genius? Would you call yourself a creative genius?
No, I wouldn't use such a grandiose term. I kind of consider myself as a creative wholesaler. I've got all these tools in my belt and help other people with that creativity, distribute it.
Yeah. So what does creativity mean to you?
So I define creativity, and I think again it was a Google search one that I really resonated with. The simplifying for me of creativity is the coming together of two pre-existing ideas to form a new one. And that's a very simplistic term, obviously, but it applies to everything. It applies when you're a baby and you're learning to walk. You're watching your parents walk. Your limbs are doing things. Those two things coming together create that new thing. It's also in the sense, mathematical equations and problems. It's also in terms of art. And obviously those two pre-existing ideas are very, very simplified. It's all your ideas coming together basically to create a new one. That's how I see creativity.
Yeah, love it. So we're going to talk more in depth about how to be more confident and how to be more creative. But I think for me, the very first takeaway from this is both of these things are inside us already. And it's about understanding what we can do to either learn or to think to maybe be more confident or to be more creative in a given situation. It's also situational as well, because it's also about the different things that we're doing, and might be based on experience, might be based on conditioning or something that makes us more or less confident, more or less creative. Just before, one question I was meant to ask you during your intro is, how have you creatively used the Lord Simon title?
Creatively use the Lord. So it's funny. The most important bit is about the confidence. And what's the fashion guy called? Gok Wan. It's all about the confidence.
Just do that one more time for me.
It's all about the confidence, and I would say like some of the creative stuff that I've done. So first of all, I managed to avoid getting deported from New York, from America. I was busking in Times Square when I was about 16. I was on a youth trip, and my friends and I were belting out Wonderwall. It was part of like a scavenger hunt kind of challenge, and we were doing okay, getting some money on our caps and stuff from the busking. All of a sudden, I felt a huge hand on my shoulder. I look up, and there's this massive, he looked like 8 foot tall, huge New York cop, sort of looking down at me, and he just started yelling at us. Telling us that it was illegal to busk in Times Square and various other things. I looked to my right, and all my friends had run away, left me by myself. At which point, I was like, oh God, this is it. I'm going to get deported. I'm going to be in all the newspapers. My parents are going to have to come, bail me out and stuff. And he must have seen, that I was welling up and on the verge of crisis. And he stopped for a second. And at that point, I kind of heard my own voice, like an out of body experience. And I started going, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, I'm from England. I'm on a youth trip. And then I uttered the words, I'm actually a lord. At which point he kind of did one of these, like, what? And he was a bit put up, a bit perturbed, not sure what was going on. And my friends must have seen that I'd silenced him slightly and came running back, and they knew that I had the bank card, and they were like, show him the card. And so I was like, oh God. So I took out the card, shaking my hand. I was like, here you go, just as like proof as the Lord. He looked at it, looked me up and down. Bear in mind, I didn't look too dissimilar to this. I had a even bigger afro at that point. Looked at the card again, looked me up and down, and then we thought, oh God. But he bowed, and he said, it's an honor to meet you, Lord. Asked for some pictures with us, and apologized for shouting at me, and then just said, don't busk in Times Square anymore because it is illegal. And then he walked off, sort of like with his tail between his legs. And I thought, oh my God, I've avoided being deported. That's incredible. It was one of those things where you ask for permission, you don't get it, but you ask for forgiveness instead. But actually, someone pointed out to me recently that, which I hadn't considered, this cop probably walked away thinking, I've just avoided a national incident. He probably thought, telling off royalty or something. He probably dines out on that story. So there you go. That's one of the creative / confident things that's happened with the Lordship, but there's loads more.
Yeah, brilliant. No, love it. Okay, so we're just getting to the confidence just a little bit. And I've got a formula that when I work with people leaders or change leaders that I introduce to get them to think a little bit differently. I think it was Socrates that said that I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. And I think to be more confident, if it's all comes from feelings, then your feelings come from your thoughts. So if you can think differently about an individual situation, then you've got a chance of being more confident about it. So this is the formula. So I call it the Q's for confidence. So the Q stands for something, and we spoke at the previous slide about it's about an individual situation. So I don't know anybody that is confident 100% of the time about everything. And I think to be more confident in an individual situation, you've got to know what that situation is and know what it is you're about to or where you want to be more confident. Is there anywhere you want to be more confident? Anywhere you can think of?
Sorry, Lee, I missed you for a second.
Oh,
my headphones.
Yeah, no, sorry. So I was just saying, is there anywhere you want to be more confident? Do you have an individual situation where you want to be more confident?
That's an interesting one. Well, I was going to do some stand-up comedy before COVID happened. I was meant to be doing something in April, but the course and thing that I was doing got cancelled. I've always said I wanted to do stand-up comedy. I did a course for a day, and I did it in front of like 8 people. But the thought of actually standing up on stage in front of more than 10 people and doing comedy is terrifying. So I suppose more confident in that. And it's funny because, as you said earlier, I'm fairly comfortable with being in front of people and doing a talk, and I also do humor in that. But the pure idea that people are coming to hear something funny and hearing like dead silence, that is just oof.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't know that about you and I don't think we've had this conversation. So apologies for doing it now. But in August, I got as a birthday present. I got a gift of going on a comedy course.
All right, well there you go.
Yeah, so I did that first one, and then for Christmas, I'm getting. So that was the beginner one, and at Christmas, I'm hoping I'm going to get the intermediate course or a contribution towards the intermediate course. I didn't know there was so many different levels of funniness. So if this is now just a conversation between me and you, but afterwards, let me know where you're doing it, because you do a graduation gig, don't you, on a comedy course?
Yes.
In front of friends and family, and maybe one of the next times we could do a graduation gig together.
Sure.
Anyway,
yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, we digress. We digress. Yeah. So the key for confidence. So be more confident. You've got to pick an individual situation and know what that is and have clarity on that. So because not everybody's confident in every single thing that they do. And then the cues part of it is this. So to become confident, it's about your level of comfort in that situation, your level of understanding of what good looks like or what you need to do, and your level of effort in actually doing it. I'm recording my first podcast of 2021 is called something along the lines of, it's a working title, that there's no such thing as an overnight success. And I think that's the true with confidence as well. You've got to work at it. You're not just naturally confident. So what I would encourage, if you've picked an individual situation that you want to be more confident in, then score yourself on your level of comfort about that individual situation out of 10. 10 being high, 1 being low. Your level of understanding of what good looks like, 1 being low, 10 being high, and level of effort that you're actually trying to be more confident in it. And then that will give you a score, but it also give you 3 things that you need to consider where you can work on. So Socrates said, "Can't teach you anything, I can only make you think." So if you can think about those 3 things, then that might give you a different avenue to explore to be more confident in that situation. So for you, for the stand-up comedy, for me, for the stand-up comedy as well, it was, I thought I was funnier than I am. And I thought I knew what stand-up comedy was all about, but I wanted to go on the course to gain a greater understanding of stand-up comedy. And that for me is my work in that middle bit. My level of comfort in standing in front of people doing this is helping me build and increase my level of comfort. And I think the level of effort is just how many times do you apply those things. But I was delivering a course about 6 weeks ago, and somebody said to me, they said, but there's a line between confidence and arrogance. And I agree with them. There is, and I think that there's one word or 2 words that come in that line. So if you're wanting to be confident for a particular purpose for yourself, so if you want to show people how good you are, then that's where you tip over into arrogance. But if you're trying to just be confidently do what you do, but it's for the other person and it's just to do what you do, then that's where you are confident. So I think the line between confidence and arrogance is self-orientation, and working on those 3 things will give you an understanding of maybe where you can understand what actions you can take to be more confident. That might be the first time you've seen that formula there, Lord Simon. What's your thoughts on it? Good or bad? And just be honest.
Yeah, I really like it. I think the comfort side of things, the more I read over it, the more correct, the more it makes sense, the equation you've got there. Comfort 100%, because and as you said, I think you build that comfort in doing something. So the first time that I did a presentation, whenever it was in high school or maybe university, it was probably the worst experience of my life. Then as you do more and more, you get more comfortable with it. And now it's come to the point where I've forgotten that, completely forgotten that first experience and that fear and that, those feelings that you have. Then the understanding side of things, that for me is an interesting one, because that's a lot of self-reflection and really trying to, understand the understanding. So for example, like you said, you thought that you were funnier than you are. I mean, I can't speak to that. But I suppose, that's a tricky one. The amount of times that I've seen speakers who I've thought are terrible, and I'm not going to call anyone out or anything, but they've probably thought that maybe they thought they were really good. So that's an interesting one. The understanding.
Just on that point, I think so have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
So Dunning-Kruger, 2 people, and they I'll not go through it now, but they've got a curve, and it's all about navigating confidence. So it's like on the left-hand side, it's an axis of confidence, high to low, and on the bottom, it's knowledge and experience. And they say at the start of it, there's like it goes up like that, and then gradually goes. So as people gain a more understanding, that confidence goes at the end. But at the start of it, there's a bit of a peak. And I like to relate that to like X Factor or talent shows, because a lot of people think they are really confident, think they're really good at a particular skill or a particular art. But then when they're actually graded against people that actually are, they might not be, because it's the level of understanding of what good is. So the top of this first, they call it Mount Stupid. And you're at the top here because you've got a high level of confidence, but a low level of understanding of what necessitates good. And I think so you can fake good at the start and fake confidence at the start, but the more you do that, the more you might get found out, which then dents your confidence, and you'll end up right at the bottom whilst you gain that learning. So I guess in short, I agree with what you've just said.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, definitely. And I think in there's something that I'll talk about a bit later, which is you need to start to get that, because you'll always be in that loop. Otherwise, you'll never get to that point where you do grow and you do learn. And then moving on to effort, that comes nicely from getting started. Too often people are scared of failure, scared of starting, scared of doing anything, and think that things come really quickly. But you can look across history at all the people who are creative and change the world, and no one has done anything overnight. You can look at Edison, who did the light bulb. I mean, these are sort of the things you hear, on Google, the quotes and stuff, but it's definitely based in some historical fact that it took him thousands of attempts to make the light bulb. Dyson, the amount of times he had to go out and sell his vacuum, no one in England would have heard of it. J.K. Rowling with her books, the amount of publishers that she had to go to, I think it was about 9 years before she got picked up. So 100% it's effort, and it's continual effort. And, it's not a case of doing the same thing over and over again, because that's insanity, but improving more and more and more every time you do something to learn. So yeah, I would agree with effort as well. And then,
perfect.
And then the self-orientation thing, I couldn't agree more with. There's not much to be said on that. I agree in terms of the arrogant side of things.
Yeah, no, amazing. So I am. I've only got one more slide, and I just want to really quickly introduce this one, because I work primarily with business leaders or people leaders and change leaders, and to help build the confidence. I've got 2 courses that are starting in week commencing the 18th of January, 2 Creating Confident Change Leaders courses. This is for up to 10 people, and 2 Creating Confident People Leaders courses. It's group coaching over 8 weeks, and it's 1 hour a week. That's the price there, but give me an email. We can have a chat, and it's basically going through this process. And there's 5 elements to it, because recognizing that change starts with you, whether you're a people leader or a change leader, then understanding yourself, and confidence is about, like we said, is about starting with the thoughts. So we've got a model that we introduce to that, and then there's 3 other modules after that. So that's what I wanted to just say. So if you do want to know a bit more about being more confident people leader or change leader, then by all means drop me an email, lee@getknowledge.co.uk. But this is the bit that I've been really looking forward to. It's your bit. Help me be creative, Lord Simon.
Thanks, Lee. And just for anyone watching and listening, Lee hasn't asked me to do this and probably doesn't expect me to do this, but like genuinely from speaking to Lee, full stop, I did a podcast with him a few weeks ago. Questions he asks are amazing. So, I would imagine that course is going to be spot on in terms of confidence and stuff. So there's your plug, Lee. I know you didn't ask me to do that, but there you go. So everyone watching, pre-warning, I've got 1,000,001 slides. I'm going to run through them as quickly as possible. We'll stop off and have some conversations along the way. But yeah, let's kick off. I've got a clicker as well, so I've gone really professional. Let me move that mouse out of the way. Let's see if this works. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, LinkedIners. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. And thank you to Lee for suggesting this and arranging it. Really appreciate it. So today on these slides, I am going to attempt to rip through all these things in about 10 to 15 minutes with conversation in between. So we've kind of touched on creativity and what it is. I'll give you some more examples of the definition that I gave. Then I'll be talking about like small steps to start being more creative. And we kind of touched on that already, but I'll be going into a bit more detail. Then I'm going to talk about, why we lose the creativity when we're younger, or, even when we're older, why that sort of dips. And I've put kids and teachers there, and I'll fill that in a bit later. Failure, growth mindset, and carrying on. So again, things that we've already touched on, but I'll go into a bit more detail, give some more examples, and help you to come over those things and to get more into that mindset, because mindset is such a buzzword, and it's so easy to let it just flutter by and not really think about. But mindset is something that you have to work on, and I'll touch on that. Then I'll talk about exploring and finding your passion, because that's really important for creativity. And finally, I'll summarize everything with a nice little quote at the end about people who think they can do. So in order to do anything, you need to think that you can do it. And that's a really important mindset step. So there we go, Lee. That's the summary. Let's crack on.
There we go. Let's do it.
So, creativity, what is it? So I've already kind of defined it when you asked me how I define creativity, and I said it was the coming together of two pre-existing ideas to create a new one. And so I'll just quickly show you a quick example of this in real life. So if we take beer and we take table tennis, we get beer pong. So that is creativity. At some point, something will have had to have happened to bring those two together. Now, whether it was someone really drunk thinking they have got a table tennis and some equipment and thinking they'll bring those two together, I don't know. Whether it was someone who was playing table tennis and thought, I really fancy a drink after this match, I don't know. Or whether it was people drinking around a table tennis table and just lobbing balls and thinking we can make a game with this, I don't know. But the fundamentals of it is that these two things came together. They were already pre-existing things, completely separate, that got mashed up. And I find this is a really good metaphor for creativity, because it's not about going looking for the same things. So the people with the beer, if you're in a beer company and you want to be more creative, don't go look at other beer companies solely. Go look elsewhere. Go look outside your periphery and go find out what else you can create. Same with, I think I'll come on to this example a bit further down, but if you're a designer of furniture, for example, don't go just looking at more furniture. Sure, look at the market around you, get inspired by that, but don't just look at furniture. Look outside of that, because you never know what's going to spark, what you're going to get inspired by. Whatever it is, you don't know what you're going to bring back. So that is what I would say about creativity. So go out there and find all these things, because creativity is all of your pre-existing ideas and experiences coming together. When you get that spark, that's all of those things coming together at once. So I would just, the first piece of advice is go and explore. Go and do things outside of your general, your general bubble.
So just on that, Lloyd, Simon, I think you're dead right in what you're saying there, but it's about being open to it as well. So by going out and exploring and stuff like that, you've got to have that open mind to be able to do that, to join those dots between those things. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it.
Exactly. And another big thing is open your eyes. My experience, one of the best experiences that I had in terms of that was I was going on a thing called the London Loo Tour, which is a tour of all the public toilets around London. Yes, that exists. And you might think that was the creative experience, but it was a really good experience. But actually the biggest part for me was it was myself and an Irish family that were on this tour together, really random. But I was talking to the dad and we were just having a chat. And he was telling me, about all the architecture around London, and we were busy looking up and around us as we were going from loo to loo, and I should have said Waterloo to loo. But he said, so few people look up, and so few people open their eyes to what's around them. You're so fixed of where you're going, or on your phone, or just in general, you're not of that mindset of being open to things. And I've kept that with me all the time now. So even when I go out on a walk and I do the same block, I try to mix it up. If I do the same block, I try and look up. And even yesterday, it sounds like I was snooping, but I looked in someone's window and I spotted something I hadn't seen before, like a weird looking teddy. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I had something similar when I was younger. And it was just like having that open mind to go and spot those things. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Lee. Couldn't agree more. So yeah, moving on then. A lot of people, I'm hoping that people watching this are creative or think of themselves as creative. But if you're watching this and you're one of those people who thinks, I'm not a creative, if someone says, if I was, for example, to say, put your hand up if you're creative, and you'd keep your hand firmly down, I would say that you're lying, or at least you don't know the truth. I believe that everyone is creative, and it starts when you're a kid. So I'll go back to that. I'll go back to that GIF because it's a fun one. So as I touched on before, you're being creative every time you problem solve, every time you come up with something new. And when you're a kid, that's all you do. All you do is learn and create and inspire. Even the act, as I said, the act of walking, the act of putting something down on paper, the act of speaking is creative, because you're bringing those two pre-existing ideas, language, sound, and hearing other people speak. That is being creative. And people often think that being creative is stereotypical. So they think of artists, Neil Buchanan, Elton John, singer. Those are stereotypes. And sure, I'm not denying that they're creative, but there are also creatives in all fields, in all aspects of life. Mathematicians. The list could go on of everyone who's being creative. We can talk about that for length. Try and get away from that stereotypical mindset of creativity, because you are creative. Whenever you solve a problem, whether it's something as simple as not having an implement to open a letter and using a knife instead of your fingers, whatever it is, whenever you make that jump, that realization, that is being creative. So just some quick tips in terms of getting that creative spark, those things happening. Firstly, it doesn't happen when you're trying to solve that problem. Typically, it happens when you take your mind off of it. Your mind is whirring and whirring and whirring. And what happens when you're trying to come up with a solution is naturally your brain will come up with the wrong idea, and then you'll be stuck on that wrong idea until you move on. So you have to move on. You have to take yourself away from the problem. And so that's why going for a walk, that's why having a sleep sometimes, that's why going for a shower when you take your mind off of things. And for me, my best idea come when I'm sat on the toilet, when I'm at complete peace. So the next time you're struggling in terms of coming up with an idea, or you're sat at your desk, sort of head in hands, take yourself away. Do something else. Take your mind off of it, because that's the key to having those ideas generated.
Yeah, I think just on that as well. So
yeah.
we've had a couple of comments come in. So somebody said, "Good show, gents. Keep it up. Connect, share, learn." And then Shana said, "Wow, I love that idea. Thanks, Lord Simon. Just what I needed to hear." And that came in at the point where you mentioned that everybody is creative, or everybody can be creative. Yeah. And just on that point of taking yourself away, you've used a few toilet references so far, haven't you? With your loo to and you sitting on the toilet. I was being coached earlier this week, and they asked me to, and not on the toilet, by the way, so no toilet reference. And we were trying to come up with, I was challenged to come up with a character to name something that was going on in my head. And what they said, we'll do a bit of mindfulness. So they said, put your hands like this, rub your fingertips together. This isn't in any of your slides, is it? This one?
No.
Oh, that's all right then. I just thought, oh God, a bit of a... No. Anyway, so like they said, close your eyes, rub your fingertips. So ask yourself the question, and then rub your fingertips together, and then your mind will just become conscious on the feeling of your fingertips rubbing together. And it was at that point, and I did that for about a minute, and then the character that I was asked to think about just naturally popped into my head, bizarrely, because I wasn't thinking about what I was meant to be thinking about. And the mind is an amazing thing.
It's incredible.
So, it is.
Absolutely. No, I think that's an awesome tip. Absolutely. There are things that people have done and broken down into those things. So like that, like that mindfulness stuff. That's a great quick tip. 100%. Those are like tricks, and then you can do the easier stuff, the stuff that some people feel uncomfortable doing. But going for a walk is the simplest way. Try not to take your phone, but if you do take your phone, don't look at it, or put on some music, put on a podcast that takes your mind off of what you're thinking about. So I'll crack on, whip through the slides. So the next slide is stimulate yourself. And usually when I talk about that, there's an uproar of laughter and a murmur, because it is meant to sound a bit dirty, but it's not about that. It's about what I was just saying. Find something to take your mind off of something. Stimulate yourself elsewhere. So, for example, I've recently taken up knitting. I've got a million and one things on, but sometimes you need that time to reflect and learn something new. I'm left-handed, so I'm really struggling with the knitting side of things. But it's just something that takes me away from everything else and lets my mind whir.
So is it the weather that's driven you to knitting? Is it the change in weather that's driven that? What is it?
It's two things. First of all, I love doing things with my hands. So, I want to do woodwork in the future. I love doing a bit of DIY. And I also like the idea of wearing something that I've made. And also my girlfriend's sister was doing crocheting one day. And I think subconsciously that resonated. And I was like, I'm going to pick up knitting. Those are the reasons that I did knitting.
What are you making?
Yeah. I'm currently trying to make a hat. But all I've done so far is the two different knots, because I'm struggling at the moment. So if anyone's listening that knits and is left-handed, let me know, because I'm struggling to find decent resources online to be able to learn to do the left-handed stuff, because I'm trying to have to do it in reverse, which is a struggle. So there you go.
Wow.
So I talked about this earlier about, if you're a furniture designer, and you go and just look at furniture, all you're going to produce is furniture. But if you go to I mean, it's hard now in COVID, but if you go and have different experiences, there are loads of virtual experiences that you can go and enjoy. There are loads of different things that you can learn about. It's as simple as breaking that algorithm as well. We're all binging Netflix, we're all binging Amazon Prime, we're all binging BBC iPlayer. And all those algorithms are designed to supply you with stuff that they think that you will like, which is great because often it does supply amazing things. But go and break that algorithm every now and again. Go type in that search bar a different word. So, write German, write blue, whatever comes up, and see what comes up and go and watch it, because that's a way of breaking the algorithm. I've watched some German films recently. I've watched a Bollywood thing, and I feel so much more open-minded. First of all, second of all, I feel like I'm connected to a different culture. I mean, that's really big of me to say, but in terms of I understand a bit more about the Bollywood culture. I Googled this film that I watched, and I was amazed to find out that billions and billions of people had watched it. But of course they have, because, the whole of India watches these films. But that's what I'm saying about, go find stuff outside of your normal bubble, and, you can get mind blown. So I'll just quickly touch on some examples of like the Creative Spark and the various people that have done sort of the things that I'm talking about, looked elsewhere, tried and tried again, mixed two things together. So the first one is Nikola Tesla. Now, you'll probably know his name because of the famous car make now run by Elon Musk. I don't think the Tesla estate got any funds in terms of the name, but I haven't researched that, so don't call me out. But Nikola Tesla was a madman by most terms. But he went after doing loads of different things with electricity. There's an incredible film about him and about the how electricity came to be mainstream. And he was a scientist that just tinkered and tried and tried and tried. And he is the reason that we have the AC current now. He's the reason that we have all those plugs. He's the reason that we're on this now. We've got our laptops plugged in and our electricity. So go and have a look into him, because he's fascinating. And he was considered a madman at that point. But it was just genius. Next, I actually can't remember this guy's name. I think it's Earl something. But this is just an example of someone tinkering, trying to find a solution. And basically what happened was he invented the paperclip. So he had a bunch of papers one day, and he had a piece of copper wire, and he wanted to be able to attach them. So he twisted the copper wire into a shape similar to a paperclip, just thinking that it would be, his little thing. Little did he know that it would soon take off, and a product would be made. He actually made no money from the paperclip because he didn't patent it. But these are just examples of things that wouldn't have happened had people not experimented and tried and literally twisted things. And then the final one is a guy called Erno Rubix. You might be able to guess what he invented. He was an architect by trade, and he wasn't trying to design a toy. All he was trying to do with the Rubik's Cube was be able to explain 3D shapes. And then he added various different colors, and he was experimenting, and he showed it to some people, and people started to play with it. I realized, John Villar, thank you very much, Adriana. Thank you. It wasn't Erno. So this Rubik's, he wasn't trying to create a toy. He was just experimenting, playing with different things, and showed it to some people, and realized that there was an opportunity to create a toy. And he managed to create one of, if not the most well-selling toy in history, just by playing around, doing something different, trying to change the way that people talked about 3D imaging, which is incredible. Going from that to then having a toy is madness. But you have to be open to those sorts of things, as we were talking about. So as I alluded to earlier, I'll talk about why sometimes that creativity disappears. Here are some clips of some kids enjoying their creativity. I absolutely love these. My favorite is the chap. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It said, my son didn't want to be a tiger or a superhero. He wanted to be a traffic light. He is my spirit animal. I absolutely adore that. That's so brilliant. These are just some examples of when we're kids, we do so much wacky stuff. We don't have that part of ourselves which says, got to behave, got to protect, got to put this mask on. If you're not being myself, I've got to, I've got to behave. And And it disappears when we're about 3, and we start to pick up social norms. We start to pick up social cues, and this is the point where I talk about the inner weirdo. So this is kind of like the inner child, but for me, it's the inner weirdo that wants to get out. And this is my inner weirdo. So this is a character that I created, similar to the one you were talking about earlier, in your mind. So the idea is, that you kind of lose your inner weirdo when you're a kid. So, as I said, after, at the age of about 3, you start to be able to pick up on cues. And when you start to do things that aren't necessarily normal, kids pick up on that. They start pointing it out. And if you don't have that confidence built in, if you don't have the confirmation from people that what you're doing is cool, you start to push it down. You start to hide yourself. Parents can be guilty of that as well. I've watched so many kids in so many restaurants shouting, screaming, having fun. I understand, when parents tell them to behave, but if any parents are listening, there are different ways of making sure that you don't shut down that creative spark. You just, place it somewhere else. And it also happens, in adult life. It happened to me in terms of creativity. You want to put stuff out there. You've got some amazing ideas, and the boss or the work, either poo-poos it, doesn't listen to it. You don't get the recognition that you sort of want. And slowly but surely, you kind of lose that creative spark, push that inner weirdo down. And society as a whole just tells you to stop being creative, stop being weird. And that's really troubling. I'll come on to this next slide. Because there's a scientific reason why we sort of want to stop, why we want to make sure we're part of that tribe. And that's because of the caveman instinct in us. So our brain is not very advanced, unfortunately, at least not compared to the technology that we have these days. So, compare our brains to the phones of the 1990s to the phones of 2020 that have advanced so much. Our brains have barely changed in that space of time. And therefore, it's difficult for us to keep up with those things. And when we were cavemen, probably the guy who invented the wheel was told to stop being weird and stop messing around and start hunting. And he probably did. And that's because you want to be part of a tribe. Your caveman instinct thinks it's safer to be part of a tribe. And that's because when we were cavemen, if you weren't part of a tribe, you'd probably get eaten. And so that's where we have that fear of not being liked, not being in a tribe. But that's not the case these days. You're not being chased down the street by a woolly mammoth. You're not being chased by a scary animal. The only hunting that we do these days, we used to, is in TK Maxx, for the bargains on Black Friday and stuff. So you can tell your brain to stop going off when you're doing things that are outside the norm, because that tribal instinct is all outdated. So Lee, have you got any examples of times when you felt your brain going, I need to hide this inner weirdo in me, I need to put this down, or any clients you've had where you've helped them come alongside that?
Yeah. So first things first, you love a GIF, don't you?
Oh, I love a GIF.
Yeah,
it's the best.
I mean, so one thing that I've taken from today is I need to be far more creative with my slides. But to answer your question, yes, a lot of times. I think it's really interesting. So going through my head at that when you were talking then was a couple of examples which I'll talk about in a minute. But when we started today, we said that when we give the 2 definitions, so confidence is about a feeling, and imagination or creativity is about imagination. It's all in your head. It's all about those thoughts in your head, and everything is from that. And then you brought up the slide where you said from 3 years old, and that's from the age of when we start to be judged, or when we recognize we start to be judged. And because we're being judged, and positively and negatively, that then shapes our inner voice in our head, and it's that then drives what we move forward with confidently and creativity or creatively. So loads of times, I mean, down here, I've got. So I DJ. So since we did the last LinkedIn Live, I've not taken it out of the office. So I DJ'd for 18 months dressed as a monkey. At the start of lockdown, I was going through my LinkedIn and I was going, how can I get people to stop scrolling and like watch a video. So I decided to record 8 videos of me in the bath, and I put
Love it.
yeah, well, so did a few other people, but other people didn't, because they said, well, nobody will buy from you if you're the bath guy. Nobody will trust the bath guy to help improve their business and things. So, but I was just trying to be me and trying to solve a different problem and to get my voice out to more people.
Yeah.
So I stopped the bath videos after 8 weeks because I'm conscious of, actually, I don't want to turn people off from the message. And if that's happening and some people are feeling it, but that's an example where I feel I've been judged, and not on my content, but on my performance of my content, on my delivery. So, and there's all sorts of different examples. So I used to have a corporate role, and in that, I think that's probably the time when my creativity has been quashed more, because it wasn't fit for the culture or whatever. But it's just different, and it's just a different way to do things. So so I believe that I've had the most random journey to get to where I've got to today. The only thing I'm missing is a Lord title. I think I'd love a Lord title, but I think it's too late now.
No, you can join us.
Yeah, I've DJ'd, I've had bouncy castle business, I've been an internet marketer, and these were all side hustles. I can balloon model. That's not strategically placed balloons on my person. It's actually make things with it and stuff. I've done all of these things, but they've all shaped me as an individual, and give me lessons that I've learned from, that I can now tailor to what I do. But when I was, say, 25, when I was a little bit younger than I am today, that I was more easily judged. In fact, another really good example is my tattoo on my arm. What you'll see here is an inch and a half missing from my wrist, because when I was purely focused on the corporate gig, I was conscious of, I couldn't let anybody see my arm, because what would they think of me? Yeah. What would they think of a management consultant with a tattoo? So yes, I could get that coloured in now, but I don't, because it's a reminder. I don't care now. But I think there's something about, and this is where confidence and creativity are so intrinsically linked, because you've got to be confident in yourself to express yourself creatively the most. And I think by understanding and embracing that, that's why this like webinar works for me perfectly. Yeah. Because they are so intrinsically linked. I forgot what your question is, and I'm just showing different parts of my body now.
Get it out. I was just asking for some examples where, either yourself or clients have felt that, felt that squashing of, that inner weirdo, that creativity. And so, some perfect examples, definitely. We've had some questions come in, actually, I can see on the comments. Should we have a look through them?
Yeah. Well spotted.
So Adrian is asking, how does the corporate world deal with weird and wonderful people? I don't know whether the question was how can or how does. I can add to both. I mean, this is from personal experience, of course. It's anecdotal. But how does corporate world deal with weird and wonderful people? I think as exterior people and bringing them in, a lot tend to be quite welcoming, actually, especially now, which is great. But internally, they struggle. And they struggle because they don't fit a box. And corporate, from what I found, is very box driven. You have to do. You are a certain role. You get given a title, and therefore anything outside that purview, you don't really get involved in. And that's both because it's easier not to as an employee, but also you're not encouraged to, which I think is a shame. So that links to my answer about what can more fluidity. I think, Google did a really good thing. I don't know whether they still do it, but they had a thing where 20% of your work week should have been spent on a personal project. And that provides that fluidity, that provides that creativity, that provides those people, excuse me, who are weird and wonderful. I think everyone is, but to go out and do those different things. And so things that corporates can is look inwardly, think about the people that you hire and why you hire them, and really embrace that when you do hire them. You are looking, I believe that corporates do look for people for personality, for experience and stuff. Don't let that get lost 3 months in when they're, when they're embedded. What about yourself, Lee? I mean, I'm sure you've got a raft of answers about that.
So the answer that's in my head is different is not bad. Different is wonderful. And I think different organizations respond to that. And I think it's their confidence in it. So I was encouraged that, it was suggested that I wouldn't be able to sell in the finance sector because of my tattoos and I get in the bath, because stereotypically that they might not. So I think it comes down to confidence in an organization. But it's a bit like, so I had Marmite screaming through my head. There's a lot of people that love Marmite. There's a lot of people that don't like Marmite.
Yeah.
And if you're comfortable being loved and hated, or just recognize that actually you're not for everybody.
Yes.
But you know the people that you are for, and you can find them people, then that is a perfect match. And it's difficult with recruitment processes and things like that to be able to stand out when it's a CV. Tell me a time when you have done this, this, and this. Because there's so many social norms that are just expected. So weird and wonderfulness only comes out afterwards in a lot of the instances. I'd like to embrace it in the recruitment process. First, which I think would be amazing, which could be which is a whole different talking point. So I think it's different on different brands and different businesses. I think there are some people that do embrace it. But I think for us as individuals, it's about us being confident in ourselves first, that we are weird and wonderful before we can accept that other people might find us weird or wonderful or different.
I think mindset wise, it's really tough to say this in this current climate. I hate using that term. I know people are struggling for jobs and things. But like you said, Lee, it's being confident in yourself and not selling yourself short as well. So there's a part on the corporate, there's a part on the employees themselves, but also on the people. Don't sell yourself short. Don't go for a job in a company that you don't feel resonates with your vibe, with what you want to put out there, because that's not good for anyone. Sure, you're going to need the money at some point in your life, and I appreciate that. And I'm not going to tell anybody not to get that job if they need it, but have the understanding that there are better things out there. Of course there are. There are companies that will utterly embrace that individuality, that the professional weirdoism. So that would be my piece as well.
Yeah, there's another question that's coming here as well. So I think a statement. I think allowing yourself to be vulnerable and embracing your inner child is so valuable. Taking that risk, completely agree. So children, when they learn to walk, they take about 2,700 steps to do that, because they're not frightened. They just keep going and keep going and keep going, and then so by embracing your inner child, there's so many lessons from doing that, and it's when you start to be judged that you start to lose that. So it comes back to your point before about having that creativity knocked out of you, or good.
Yeah, some really good things here. How does a quirky person grow their audience in a corporate world? A really good question. If you dare to be different. She loved the bath talks. There you go. You got a fan. I love that. I think actually I did a video from the bath, and I think I did one on the toilet actually as well. You can probably find it on my LinkedIn. So I'm a fan of it as well. Some really good questions there in terms of growing an audience. I think, without wanting to go rattle on about it, there's a rule called the 80-20 rule. Again, it's a very simplified term, but aim for the people that absolutely adore what you do, and that'll be 20%. The other 80% will either be totally ambivalent, and then it doesn't matter, or not like you. And you know what? Obviously, it's easier said than done, but you know what? If those people don't like you, it doesn't matter. That 20% will bring in the most important bits, and you'll quickly find out where you should be. I felt the same when I was in my corporate role, that when I embraced the 80-20, I got a promotion, and then ultimately I ended up being in a place where the 80% lived, and I wasn't there. I wasn't really welcome there anymore, and that's fine. And I kind of embraced that. So it's kind of looking at that in terms of growing your audience, like remembering that. Shall I try and whip through the rest of these slides really quickly?
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I've got a fun activity at the end for people watching.
Oh, exciting.
So let me just click this. Let's see if it works. Yeah. So that was me in the corporate world when I pushed my inner weirdo down. And the inner weirdo starts getting pushed down. When you talk on a uniform in school, I understand the reasons behind uniforms, but to some extent they really put down our creativity. The type of music that we have to listen to be able to fit into with our colleagues and the people around us, and then also trying to make yourself fit in that CV, in that on those sites. That's all about conforming, and that's when you push down the inner weirdo. And your inner weirdo, in my opinion, doesn't disappear like that, like a flash. It goes with a whimper. You don't even realize it until it's too late. And that's happened to me again and again and again. I found myself in situations where I've sacrificed parts of me, and it's one morning, it's 1 week where I go, I'm not happy, and that's because I've not been embracing my inner weirdo, and so that's why I try and help other people with, reconnecting with that, helping them recognize that the reasons they aren't happy is because they're not embracing their full selves. So it's about unleashing that inner weirdo and getting them back, getting them out, getting that reconnection. And then you're happy again. So we get it. How do we do it? We've already talked about a few tips, but the biggest one for me, when I find myself in those ruts is, drum roll, love a good gif, say yes. So the first time that I ever said yes, or actively said yes, was when I was about 15, 16, and I just read the book called Yes Man by Danny Wallace. I think I talked about this in the podcast, Lee. And Danny Wallace is a famous writer now. You might have seen the film called Yes Man. That was based on the book. And basically, Danny was down on his luck. He wasn't feeling, up for anything, and he was on a bus one day, and he was telling his woes to a stranger on the bus. And this stranger said, "You need to say yes more." And Danny, being the journalist that he is and the creative soul, decided to go full steam ahead and commit basically a year to yes, and just say yes to every opportunity that came his way. And I don't think the book was meant as a self-help guide, but I embraced it as such and started doing a week of saying yes. And, nothing incredibly massive happened, but it really shifted the way that I looked at the world, because until you focus on saying yes, you don't realize how often you say no, whether that's verbally, internally, or, different opportunities come your way. So I would say yes. And I've got a little activity coming up. Say yes to opportunity. Start small. So I'll come back to this in a second. But here comes the activity time. Ooh. So I'm going to ask everyone watching to sign a yes contract. And so if you'd like to fill one out, you can go to my LinkedIn profile. I think will they be able to find it somewhere in the description, or we'll put it in the comments later.
Yeah.
And then on my link, there'll be a thing called Linktree, which is all the various links for my websites and stuff. And you'll see a tab that says yes contract. Click that, and it'll open up a document similar to like the one on screen. Fill it out and commit to saying yes to every opportunity that comes your way for the next 24 hours. And I think you'll probably be quite fortunate to do it at this point in time, because there's a few less things to be able to do in COVID, but you'll be surprised how often the opportunity to say yes to something comes up. Don't tell anyone that you're close to in your family or your friends that you're doing this, because otherwise they'll cheat and ask you to do a bunch of different things. But yeah, go away, go sign this. At the bottom it says, you can submit it to the Professional Weirdos Facebook group, and we'll keep you accountable, and we love to hear your stories. But it's just a nice little nudge, a nice little way to get you started on the yes. I realise that we're coming up to the end of time. Should we wrap up, Lee? A few things that we want to.
Yeah, carry on talking.
Sure. So that's I've said a few other tips. I'll come back to that in a second. But I'll just run through a few other rebels that I like to talk about in terms of creativity and doing things differently, and other professional weirdos. So there was this guy called Gary. I can't remember his last name. Maybe Adriano will know this one as well. He was sat in a pub one day with his friends talking, and all his friends were talking about how expensive their pets were. And probably a lot of people know, now that they bought loads of dogs during COVID, how expensive they can be, and how much hassle they are. And he said it'd be easy to have a pet rock. Flippant comment. But then he started to investigate, and he thought, maybe there's something in that. So he went and bought a bunch of rocks from a quarry, bought some wood shavings, bought some boxes, and started something that became almost an overnight sensation, the pet rock. For the younger viewers out there who haven't heard of it, go and Google it. It was big in the 80s and early 90s. Lee, did you ever have a pet rock? Gary Doll, yes. Adriana knew it.
No, I feel like I've missed out on my youth now. I really want one.
You got to get a pet rock. So the genius in the pet rock was actually the brochure that came with it. That was hilarious. But it was just one of those things where Gary just embraced this weird and wacky idea. You know, it started in a pub, and he just went and tried it out. And you know, it wouldn't have affected him all that much if it didn't, but it did. And then you know, millionaire almost overnight. Then this company is one of my favorites as well. So this chap over here. He lives, I think he lives in Yorkshire, and he was walking on the hills one day and just taking in that fresh air. And he saw a news report about the pollution in China and stuff, and I thought, I'm going to bottle some of this Yorkshire fresh air and sell it online. And it sounds ridiculous, but the Chinese market and other places ate it up. So he is now selling air from across the UK, Yorkshire, Scotland, for £120 a jar.
Wow.
I'll let that sit for a second. And I do this presentation in corporate because it's such an extreme example of where weird and wonderful ideas can be successful. By no means am I saying go out there and start selling jars of air, but I'm just trying to show examples of where the most ridiculous things in the world happen. The internet is an outrageous place. So whenever you come with an amazing idea, know that these things exist. You know, so whenever you think you've got a ridiculous idea, it's not going to be that ridiculous. Then myself, this was my LinkedIn about a year ago. I used to have a tongue as my profile picture, similar to yourself, Lee. People would say to me, "Oh, that's not very professional," or I'd get people go, "That's amazing. I love that." I've since changed it, mostly because I got a professional picture done for Professional Weirdo, so I've embraced that. But I used to love having the tongue, and some people actually used it as examples of different ways to stand out on LinkedIn, which is amazing. There we go. And then another rebel. You're probably going to think I'm going to say Steve Jobs, but I'm not. There's another Steve that a lot of people actually either haven't heard of or don't know that much about, and that's Steve Wozniak. This chap, he is actually the brains behind all the technology. He was the first one that was tinkering around, right? You know, creating keyboards, creating technology. And Steve Jobs came along and said, "We can monetize this." But it was through Steve. Couldn't do that with the Yorkshire poop in a jar. Great comment. I bet you could. I bet you could. There would be someone online that would buy that, but that's by the by. What I was going to say about Steve Wozniak is that he was doing it through experimentation. He wasn't doing it, and this comes back to the confidence thing, what you were talking about before, Lee. You know, not arrogance. You know, not wanting to do it for profit. He was doing it because he loved it. His passion. You know, he was churning it out there, and he's changed the world. And like I said, this is a Steve Jobs quote. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. You know, and fundamentally, in terms of confidence, in terms of creativity, you have to believe that it's possible to be able to start doing it and to be able to make an impact. So that's a rip through of creativity and confidence. That's Professional Weirdos. There's a Facebook group called Professional Weirdos you can join. I've got a book called Get Started, which is like hints and tips about getting started. I do talks, workshops, and virtual fun. Say yes. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Lee, for inviting me. Congratulate yourselves for being on this whirlwind journey. And that's all, folks. Good. Thank you and good night. If you've got any questions, fire away.
Oh my God! Yeah. How many GIFs have been used in the creation of this presentation?
Oh, I would say an easy 20. Minimum.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Where did you get your GIFs from? Because I need to up my GIF game.
Giphy, Giphy is a really good source, but also Google. So you know, you can go on images and get some incredible images. And also, if you use Google Slides, you can embed them really easily as well.
Oh, amazing! I'm gonna give that a whirl. But honestly, right, I've loved that last hour. That was really good. And when we dreamt this idea of doing confidence and creativity, I thought they were linked, but only through this conversation have I strengthened the link between the two. It's all about the thoughts in your head, and you've got to be confident in yourself to then express yourself creatively. Yeah. You've got to open your eyes to be open to new ideas, and trying different things.
Yeah, absolutely
is a key to it all. So no, that's it's been always a pleasure to chat with you, Lord Simon.
Yeah.
But would you be keen on doing this again?
100%. You know, I really enjoyed it, and I couldn't agree more about the link between confidence and creativity. And I think I took the lion's share of this session, so I think next time I'm gonna let you take the lead. You know, but if you ask me to talk about creativity, I can talk about creativity till the cows come home.
Yeah, no, I think the next one we do, so we'll do something that's an actual session where we can get people to do stuff at that point in time. No idea. Maybe I should wait till I'll hit end broadcast before we actually have this conversation, but we'll do something where we can actually do something interactive, where we can help people be more creative, be more confident. So there's a tangible output for people afterwards. I think would be amazing as well. So no,
well, people should and will go and do that yes contract. That's the first activity.
Yes, they will and shall. So what I'll make sure in the YouTube description and the LinkedIn comments, I'll put a link to that as well, so that everybody can access that. So no, it's amazing. And what are you having for your tea?
Probably have a pizza, I think. But I've got some pineapple that I might chop up and put on it to, you know, add a bit of creative spice to that pizza.
There you go. That is the creative finish. Perfect. So have an amazing rest of your day, Lord Simon. Thank you again. And we will do this at some time early January, say.
Yeah, that works. That's great. Yeah,
perfect.
Thanks, Lee. Really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's watched. You know, I hope you've had a decent break from work for a bit. And if you haven't already, go for a walk.
There we go.